Hi, Miss Christine here, and I want to share with you my orchid that I got to bloom for the first time ever. I took pictures during this process so that I could show you. Here, I had clipped off the dead blooms, and I clipped the stems where the blooms had died off. I clipped them at a diagonal. Here, my orchid has what they call air roots, meaning this orchid needs to be repotted at some point in the near future. That I will have to research and get back to you on another day because I haven't done that yet. Here I have some buds now have formed on my orchid plant. Right here is what is described as a mitten, a spike with a mitten shape. And here's another bloom. It's a bud at this point. It has not opened yet. About 2 days later, the bloom looked like this. Bud was starting to open up in a bloom. These buds have not opened yet. They're still not open now, but they have gotten bigger. The next day, after this picture was taken, the bloom opens, and I have a beautiful new orchid. And this one was taken a day later after that orchid had opened up and bloomed. A lot of people think that orchids are difficult to take care of. That's not necessarily true. There are a few things that orchids do need. They need about 6 hours of indirect sunlight. That means they're not in direct sunlight. They're in a sunny room without the sun hitting them directly. They do need to be watered every 5 to 7 days or every 10 to 14 days, depending upon the type of orchid. The orchids that I have here are mini orchids, and they need to be watered every 5 to 7 days. The best way to water your orchid is to let it dry out completely before watering again. And that will be about 5 to 7 days after you've watered it last. You can do it a couple of different ways. You can take a tray and put water in the tray and put pebbles with water, just enough water to cover the pebbles, and let the plant sit in that water. Or what I like to do is I water my plants and I put them into a bowl to hold the water. And I'll let them sit in the water for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then I make sure that they are drained really well before I put them back into the pot. Orchids do not like to remain wet, so it's very important that you do not have water sitting in the bottom of their pot. They do like humidity, so it is good if you can cluster a couple of plants together because they will form humidity between them. I only have 2 orchid plants right now, so it's a little difficult for me to cluster them, but I am hoping to get a few more. I keep mine in the kitchen where it tends to be a little bit warmer when the oven is on, and I do keep the window open so that the temperature is usually about 68 degrees in my kitchen. They seem to enjoy that. The rule of thumb for the temperature that the orchids should be in is 65 to 75 degrees. You can fertilize the plants about once a month. And I looked online, I was able to find fertilizer on such sites as Amazon. Although I'm told that you can get it at your local supermarket, I have not yet seen it there at my supermarket, but I can order it online. In order for the orchid to rebloom, it is best if you cut the old blooms off at a diagonal, as I mentioned before, and then just continue watering as you normally would, and it will take about a month for the mitten spike, which is this here, to form and grow. So now that we've learned a little bit about orchids, I'd like to ask you a couple questions to see what you've learned. How often should you water orchids, or the orchids that I have here, the mini orchids? That's right, every 5 to 7 days. When should you water your orchid? It's slightly different than the first question I asked. When the soil has dried out, which is typically 5 to 7 days after your last watering. What is the best temperature to keep your orchids at? That's right. If you remember, I keep mine at approximately 68 degrees in my kitchen, but they do like anywhere from 65 to 75 degrees. About how long does it take for a new bloom? That's right. It takes about a month after you cut off the old blooms before you get the mittens and the new bloom to form. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as I learn more about orchids, I will share it with you.